Hello YouTube, this is JD Cooper and I'm here today with my third video, and it's just kind of a random video, but I'm going to just put out there that on some of the best ways to repair a low voltage wire. I'm a refrigeration mechanic, and I have to do a lot with repairing low voltage wire, like 12 volt wires, which work the same for cars. I wouldn't recommend at all for any kind of high voltage. We're just sticking with low voltage, 12 volt batteries, 12 volt circuits, but a lot of times in vehicles, due to vibration, you can rub the insulation off the wires. Even mechanic error, trying to get into a harness, they cut a insulation without really even knowing it, and it shows back up sometime later full of corrosion. And what I'm going to show you is how to repair that wire with that corrosion in there to get the best solder without the solder beating up on the wire because of the oxidation. So here we go. Okay, this is just one of your standard Delphi plugs. I don't think it's really used on newer cars nowadays, but you may come across this. It's not really the point, but this was off of a unit that I had saved the plug on, and right here where the two wires, they actually go inside of a coil to actuate a solenoid valve, and the corrosion. Now I'm going to strip that back and see what we have. I can see it a little bit better now. Don't think we could be able to see the corrosion. There's the corrosion on this tip of the wire here. The wire is clearly not copper. It's all oxidized. And you got corrosion on this tip right here from the end of that wire. And what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to clean this up, shiny as a copper penny, and to be able to solder the wires together. The best way I've found is using a wire wheel. It can be on a die grinder, a battery powered cordless tool of some sort, but the high speed wire wheel is what we want to use, and it allows it to get into all the strands that are wrapped together, and it really cleans it out really good. So as always, safety glasses using wire wheels, and you can have this going in either direction. You just have to, whether you lay the wire on one side or on the back side. And you just turn the wire as you're spinning. You can use your finger to push down on the wire a little bit right here at the end of the insulation, and try to get it down into the wires on the brush, and it'll help spread it out. Alright, that was one. This is the one with the corrosion on it. You can see it a little bit there now. Now Now we have shiny copper. They look brand new now. Now, depending on your green corrosion as to whether or not it's actually eating the copper, you may have to cut back and to be able to have enough copper there to solder. Now keep in mind, this does, soldering wires together like this does increase the resistance of your circuit. Low voltage, unless you have an extreme sensitive resistance reading on this circuit, you can do this and it really won't change the current draw on it. I'm just going to solder these two wires together here. I'm probably going to use my little handy helper here. Used to have a hammer for the magnet. I've done different ways of doing these wires together. A lot of times what I'll do is fan one. I'll just fan them both and see how this one's fanning too. And I'll just turn them 90 degrees and just insert them in and then twist them. I don't really like hooking them and folding them back onto each other. That's well, actually I think will cause more resistance instead of having them to straight in line. The best way is to just solder them probably on the ends, pretty close to the ends right there. But it's pretty complicated when you're in tight confined spaces. So I'll just fan them out, hold one side while I twist the other side, and then I'll hold the other one. This wire is pulling me a little bit. Sometimes you can't really get the best fan there. This wire is stiff, old. It's probably all oxidized all the way up into the insulation there. So it kind of makes it complicated to get them hooked together like this. And that's where this handy helper comes in handy. You can either use a soldering iron. I use a torch, just a regular old butane torch. And I use rosin core solder. It's really the best to use on this. Now what you want to do is you want to heat up the wire from one side, and while you're bringing in your solder from the other side. And at the same time, this takes practice, and at the same time you don't want the solder in the flame. You don't want to melt the solder with the flame. You want it to melt. You want the metal to get hot enough to where you can touch the metal with the solder and it melts in there. See, this one here is actually not clean enough. See how it's beating up on there? So if you come across that, means you need to start over basically. That's basically not clean enough. I've got some other wire. Got plenty of old wire here to practice with. One reason why I'm showing you this video is because these butt connectors buck connectors or a low voltage vehicle of any kind that's using low voltage wire, it's their worst enemy. Any kind of moisture present, unless it's a really good buck connection with sealed edges where the moisture can't get in, that's really the best way you go if you're going to go with a buck connector. But when you're crimping like these here, this is just 1 inch cut off. But when you crimp these, you have to be really careful not to cut through the outer insulation of these, because the moisture will find the smallest, tiniest little hole and start doing its corrosion work on there. And for you, it's just a matter of time before you lose your circuit. Now you can see one's darker than the other one. Some of this one here, the butt connection that it had probably had a hole in it, and the moisture was already starting to get in there. Copper will turn color with just regular breathable air. It's oxidation. So what we're going to do is clean up both of these. Even if it's shiny copper, shiny and looks brand new, it's still a good idea to clean, because solder likes cleanliness. It's always best to clean brand new copper too, just to be sure. You can see how this is a dull copper, dull shiny copper. This one is more shiny and a little bit darker in color, so it has some oxidation on it. Checking to see if there's still any dirty spots. Alright, now we got these clean. Spread these out just a little bit. Then just place them in there. And this is a better twist than that on the other one. I like the way this feels better. I should get better soldering out of this one. Now as I was saying earlier, you will increase some resistance in these kind of solder joints. And if you've got a sensitive circuit, best thing to do if you've got a broken wire is just replace the wire from A to B, and then you won't even have to worry about an irregular reading or it's off by just a little bit. But most cars or even low voltage systems used on vehicles aren't that sensitive, and you can just do this kind of a repair on the vehicle if you got enough slack. Sometimes you don't have enough slack, and I've had to cut some short pieces of wire out, and I would have 2 solder joints just to be able to connect the 2 wires back together, because the corrosion would be so bad it would probably be this much wire corroded pretty bad, and I'd have to cut it back here, get another piece of wire to take up to put in between them, because I have no slack on it. So let's try this solder. And I'm coming up kind of underneath here. Okay, this wire. Oh, not able to get it good and clean enough. Generally, I don't run into this kind of problems, but it can still function because the solder is still joined together. Now, you can use a lot of people, I think a lot of automotive mechanics use a soldering iron. I've got one, but the problem is you have to run an extension cord or even a butane soldering iron, and it's just a lot more trouble than it's worth, and these torches are a lot faster. You just have to be careful where you're aiming it at, because you can see I scorched it a little bit there. That's not really going to hurt it. And once you're done with your solder joint, you actually want to do this first, is because you want to have your shrink tube already on the wire before you solder. I can't tell you how many times I forgot that, and have a nice pretty solder joint and no shrink tube to put over it. I just get that centered in there, and it's recommended, I think I read somewhere, it's at least a half inch of shrink tube on either side of your solder joint to ensure that you have a good seal connection there from the weather. This shrink tube actually has a some kind of sticky silicone on there. Once it sticks to the wire all the way around. You just have to be sure you don't burn the shrink tube. But that's pretty much it. Now you have a fully repaired circuit, problem solved, everything's back and running again, and it's nice and solid. You don't have to worry about it coming apart. You can put actually a lot of force on this, and you know, it won't come apart. Butt connectors, you know, you can pull them apart and give it enough pull on it. And this solder is really strong, and this is what we use at work, and we use this stuff all day long. I don't know how many repair jobs I've done, and actually come back across my old repair jobs sometime way down the road, and it's still holding up, no problem. So hopefully this will help you out on solving or repairing your a wire in your 12-volt system that's been exposed, cut, or with corrosion. And I've had a lot of guys the old way I used to do before I discovered using the wire wheel was using emery cloth. The problem with that is it only cleans the side you can touch. So using the wire wheel, and you can actually get it down into the wires on the wheel, and just get it good and clean a lot better for the solder to stick. You can go clean it a little longer than what I just showed you, and you can ensure that it's really good and clean. They always say cleanliness is next to godliness, so copper loves that. So I do brazing at work too with copper, so copper loves cleanliness. It don't matter if it's brand spanking new, clean it, because that's the best way to get solder or any kind to stick to it. So if you like this video, press the like and let me know. Any comments are welcome, and get a subscription, and you can get emails when my next video will be popped up. So thank you. Y'all have a good day.